everyone. Thanks for dialing in from all around the world. And today we have Jake Hurwitz with us. Now, Jake started his first business when he was 8. That was a couple of years ago, as you can see, because he's a young-looking guy. He started repairing skateboards around his suburban New York neighborhood. Jake is the founder of 𝓲𝓵𝓵, and we're going to ask him why he called that. A studio that specializes in various aspects of digital content creation and marketing. They excel in creating impactful websites and lead pages, creating high-quality video and podcast content, managing blogs and newsletters, and consistently delivering large volumes of content. And I've been in content marketing for a long time, so I'm curious about what his magic sauce is and what he's doing. This helps startups to obtain valuable insights into which styles, channels, and hooks are effectively driving conversions. Prior to 𝓲𝓵𝓵, Jake served as the Chief Marketing Officer of Day One, a community and school for emerging entrepreneurs, supported by investors like Gary Vaynerchuk and Antler. Throughout his career, he's helped multiple startups grow substantially within 6 months and started 6 more companies. Welcome to the show, Jake. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
So, started selling skateboards or repairing skateboards when you're 8. What was this entrepreneurial gene? What did you say? I just want to make more money because I want to buy more skate clothes. What was the inspiration?
I don't know. No one's ever asked me candidly like why I did it, which is so funny that you bring it up. I think I just wanted to be more well-known in the neighborhood. I mean, I lived in this like cookie cutter, kind of copy and paste style neighborhood about 40 minutes outside of New York City. All the houses were pretty much connected to each other or separated by just a few feet. So there were like a ton of mailboxes, right? And they all looked the same. And I just remember making these flyers that said like Jake Skateboard Repair Service. I put them in every single mailbox. I definitely didn't do any market research. Turns out not a lot of people in my neighborhood skateboarded, let alone needed their skateboard to be repaired. 2 funny stories from that, actually. Number one, my parents got a fine from the neighborhood, I don't know, HOA, I guess, that said I'm not allowed to put flyers in mailboxes, and if I do it again, we're going to be fined even more or potentially threatened to have to move out of the neighborhood. We're like, really? Kid's 8 years old, like trying to build a business here. So that was probably my first run-in with funny, like not the law, but, you know, run-in with authority, and ask me how I feel about authority these days. Second funny story was I actually did have one customer, a very sweet old man who was a few doors down, who went to the store, bought a skateboard, drove over it with his car to break it, and then asked me to repair it. And I couldn't repair it. I couldn't like mend 2 pieces of wood together. I was thinking more like if your screws are loose, I could tighten those or something. But long story short, I think I just wanted to do something and like make $1 for it.
Okay, right. So you hadn't done the market research. So let's move on next to, because you did college, or when you started, what was the next sort of major thing you did in the business era or training for it?
Yeah, first I'd say like minor business was, it was my junior year of high school. Long story short, I got a car. Gas was really expensive at the time, so I couldn't afford gas, but I was able to get the car. So I did the calculations and thought if I work at the local pizza shop or the bowling alley, like all my friends, for minimum wage, I couldn't afford the gas. So I need to figure out a way to make more cash. So I started a tutoring business. I was 16 years old, and I would work with about 20 to 30 students a week for $30 an hour after school and teach them like 1st grade math or 2nd grade science. It was pretty straightforward. And then after about a year of that, I built a business where I had a bunch of tutors working under me. So when I'd be out tutoring, 4 or 5 students a day, I'd get a cut from them, but also about another 30 or 40 students that other people were tutoring under my business. So that was like my first sort of company, even though I didn't have an LLC or anything for that. It wasn't incorporated. But the first major thing was when I was 18, I started an agency, creative agency, that just sort of was the vehicle for everything. I mean, I was building websites, I was doing video, I was taking photos, I was making logos and brands, and I wanted to start working with startups. I had just moved from New York to Colorado. It was a great way to get connected in the local startup scene there. And we ended up working with about 85 companies in the first 18 months, the majority of which were startups. There were a few universities in our portfolio. And actually, one that was pretty cool was Bob Dylan and his team launched a whiskey brand, and we did some work for the Bob Dylan's whiskey line. So I was a 20-year-old kid working on clients like Bob Dylan and big universities and a whole bunch of startups.
So that was in Colorado?
Correct.
So is Colorado still a sort of a startup hub?
Yeah, it was. I would say it was in the top 5 startup hubs from the years 2012 through, I don't know, 2017 or so. Denver and Boulder are still very highly rated in terms of activity and great place to work. Depending on the year, they are sometimes listed as amongst the top for venture capital dollars. But Techstars was actually founded in Boulder, and it really took off around the years of 2013, 2014. And that was right when I got there and had started the agency. And so you had lots of folks moving from the coasts to Boulder, even if it was just for 12 weeks to be in the Techstars portfolio, but a lot of which stuck around and stayed. So there was an interesting era of time where Boulder and Denver was a hotbed for startups around the US, mostly led by Techstars, a few other small accelerators, and Foundry Group, one of the greatest VC funds of all time, is located in Boulder. So they really were the nucleus of that scene.
So what attracted you to startups? As because it's like the Silicon Valley myth story. Is that what attracted you to startups?
I'm not sure. I think it was just, these were people like me. I mean, folks that I felt at home with startups. I felt just connected with people that were trying to see how the world could be and make it happen versus just accepting the world for how it was. And I was one of those people, and I didn't really know what to do with that energy. And in suburban New York, like, there was no startup scene. I didn't even know what a startup was. I just knew what entrepreneurship was.
Yeah.
Not the same thing.
Yep.
Where even at the time, like New York City, there wasn't even much of a startup tech scene. That really didn't even start until like 2017 or so. And it really didn't become a thing until about 2 years ago. So anyway, when I got to Colorado, I knew there was a lot of activity around entrepreneurship in general and like cool people building cool apps and stuff. But it took me probably about a month, but still not that long, a month, to have my eyes open to like, whoa, there's a whole culture and a lifestyle here. And I just was hanging out around co-working spaces in Boulder and in Denver and really felt at home with that community.
Right. So it almost sounds like New York was more established, traditional type businesses versus the new exciting frontier of digital and digital startups.
Yeah. At the time, startups weren't raising enough money to even afford to be in New York. New York has always been very expensive. To be here, you kind of had to be in finance or media. And then when startups began to raise a lot more money for many reasons. One, cost of engineering was going up, but also like just cost of living was going up. So founders and their returns were higher. So lots of reasons why startups began raising more. They could then be in New York, which I would say, and during COVID too, like costs went down in New York to live. So a lot moved to New York City during that time. A lot of startups did and are still here. And now it's the #1 city in the country, probably the world, to start a company.
Right, New York.
Yep. Also, and that statistic is based off the amount of venture capital that was invested over the last couple of years. New York City has surpassed that of Silicon Valley.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's very, very, very interesting. I didn't know that fact.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question about what was your first sort of significant startup, the one that you sold. Okay. Tell us a little bit about that and where the inspiration of that came from. What was the name? And how did that come about?
Sure. So it was like end of my junior year, early senior year of college. And I went and started my first startup. I mean, before that, I was running an agency, and this was in the ed tech space. That's not the one that did well. That one failed. But after that, after we shut it down, after about probably 2 years, I went and joined a startup studio. For those any listeners here who don't know what a startup studio is, it's basically a VC fund that incubates its own companies and invests in them versus investing in outside companies. So you've got accelerators, you've got funds, you have studios. So I went and joined a studio called Boulder Bits as the VP of branding. So I was in charge of everything for all of our portfolio companies in regard to marketing and creative and content and design and branding. So whenever we would incubate and launch a new company, and we would do about 4 to 6 a year. It was me and my team that were in charge of building the website, coming up with the name, doing the logo, like creating the launch video, making their social media channels, like building the brand, building the thing. And some of that fell into product as well if we were doing like no code product. One of the companies we started, though, was a global network of startup studios called the Global Startup Studio Network, or GSSN for short. And it's really funny how this one worked out, because at first the idea was, well, we're a startup studio. There aren't that many around the world. There's like 80, and none of us are really talking to each other, and we're not competing with each other, and we're all struggling with the same things. We should be connected. So we started a Slack channel, and this was in the early days of like a digital community. No one even was calling it that. It was a Slack channel. We started hosting weekly events and bringing in the best studios to teach things to the emerging studios. We started bringing in lawyers to talk about how to like do the legal side of studio fund formation, brought in investors to talk about why they were bullish or bearish on studios. So it just became this like cool consortium of studios. It grew very quickly. We then sold that to the Global Accelerator Network, or GAN, G-A-N, and that was in 2019. And right around the time of selling GSSN to GAN, we also wrote the first white paper on the startup studio model, and that was the publishing of that white paper came out at the same time that sale, the acquisition, was announced, and that was in, I believe, March of 2019.
Right. So let's move forward to. I'm interested about the story with you getting involved with Gary Vaynerchuk and Antler. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I wasn't the one to lead those deals, by the way. So 𝓲𝓵𝓵 and 𝓵𝓵𝓵 are the CEO and COO, co-founders of Day One. Andrew was the chief innovation officer at Human Ventures for quite a long time. Human Ventures was a startup studio based in New York City. And when I was at Boulder Bits and when I was starting the Global Startup Studio Network, he joined the network as Human Ventures. So Human Ventures was one of our early members. Andrew became a friend and kind of personal mentor to me. And then around the time that COVID hit, he left Human Ventures to start Day One. He and Rahul got in touch with Gary and Antler as investors. And then shortly after that first pre-seed round was closed, Andrew and I had, we kept in touch, of course, all those years. And it essentially was the right time for me to jump on board and become the CMO. So that's when I joined. So it was right after the deal closed with Gary and Antler and a few other investors.
So what was the name of that business, that startup?
Day One. It
was called Day One. Okay, I thought in the studio. Okay, and what did Day One do?
Day One was cool, and they are still around, but now it's much smaller. But the approach was that we wanted to build a school for emerging entrepreneurs. Yep. So you had, tens of millions of people around the world, in the US especially, that want to start a company. Not just tech companies. I mean, any company. You could start a landscaping business or a protein supplement, sell it on Amazon, or a tech startup. Or you just want to like have a side hustle helping people, with making logos, you name it. If you're not in San Francisco, or you're not in New York, or you're not in Los Angeles, the access to other entrepreneurs, investors, yep, mentors, even just like general knowledge on like how to start a company, very difficult to find. All of those things were difficult. If I'm in Boise, Idaho, or, some random town in Missouri or Arkansas, you're just like in the middle of the country, you're not in a hotbed of tech. And you're not in a hotbed of startups. So building a network, getting the knowledge, learning the things that you need to learn to start a company was just all really hard. So we thought, what if we built an online community and school, helping people connect with other entrepreneurs for the first time, connect with potential investors, mentors, advisors, you name it. And so people would join a 12-week boot camp to connect with people for the first time and just learn, like, this is how you be an entrepreneur. And then they'd be part of the community for life.
Right. Okay. Very cool. So let's leap forward now to what you're doing now at Thursday Labs. Where did the idea for that come from? Because I'm always curious about what's the inspiration for the businesses that people start.
Yeah, sure.
So where did Thursday Labs come from? The idea, and what do Thursday Labs do exactly?
Yeah, the idea and the inspiration is kind of twofold. One, it is still the agency that I've been running now for 10 years, which I started when I was 18. So you can do the math, and now you know how old I am. But so it's the same LLC, same docs, I mean, same lawyers, all of it. And I continue to run that agency for all these years, just on the side. So when I was at day one, I was there for about a year. And the first half of that year was the tail end of the market being great, bull market. The second half of that year was started by the market crashing and now everything getting really hard. And before the market crashed, when everything was great, we were spending a lot of money on ads and content creation. And we were just like throwing money at the wall, both in the type of stuff we were creating and putting out in the world, but also the team, the salaries of the people that we had in-house to do marketing. And that was just what you did. Like, companies were raising $10 million seed rounds, hiring a world-class CMO for $300,000 a year, and then building a team of content creators and social media people and marketing managers all in-house to then go figure out how we're going to market and grow and build a brand.
Yeah.
And what was happening was most of these companies, including us, it's just what we all did was they'd do that for about a year or 2 years. And the goal was to build the brand, do growth, as our investors were calling it, and figure out our unit economics, figure out the right channels to be using. So figure out the right product channels to distribute on, and build a playbook. And you would spend $1 million or $2 million over the course of a year or two to figure that stuff out. But the funny thing is, none of us were figuring it out, because most of the time acquisition was coming from Facebook ads or Google ads, and the CPM on that is just getting higher and higher. Yes. And so we were basically just like buying customers, and 50 cents of every dollar that we were spending on customers was just going back into the hands of Facebook and Google. Here's the funny thing. The investors in Facebook and Google are the exact same investors that are telling these startups to go do that.
Right. Okay.
So who's actually making the money here at the end of the day? It's the VCs. Yep. That's fine. That's the game they play. I was in that seat for a little while, and like, that's the business we're in. So anyway, when the market crashed, none of that worked anymore, because we couldn't raise those $10 million seed rounds anymore. So now it's like, okay, we can only raise 3 million or 5 million or even $1 million. And we need to still grow. We need to get to the next round. We need to get great terms on that next round. And we need to not die. And we need to do it by spending very little money. Still need to spend something, maybe more like 20 grand a month or 30 grand a month versus 100 grand a month. And we got to do it in a way that is sustainable and predictable and reliable. So I shifted my mindset when that became the reality, when I was at day one as CMO. And I thought, all right, well, if I have barely any money to spend now, and I have pretty much no team now, like, what am I going to do? We still have to grow even more than we were before in order to survive at all and raise the next round, but we don't have much money to spend. So I started kind of digging into like first principles and in general, but also first principles for me. You asked a bit about what I was into as like a little kid when I started the skateboard repair business. Well, I've always been really into skateboarding and action sports and that whole world. Surf videos, skateboard videos, surf companies, skateboard companies, snowboard companies. Those have always been, in my mind, the companies that just did the best at creating great organic content and had the most conversion for it. And I would just be like such a diehard loyal fan of these brands because of their content. They were never trying to sell me their skateboards or sell me their merchandise. They were just inspiring me to be a great skateboarder, right? And I loved them for it. So I thought, what if we do the same thing in tech? And the two companies that really come to mind for me here that I follow, essentially, this philosophy, and I'd scream this from the rooftops every day on social media, are Patagonia and Yeti coolers. What both of these brands do is they create beautiful, I mean, we're talking like highly produced short films and documentaries, not about their products. They'll never put out a video that's just talking about how great the new Yeti cooler is and how cold it keeps your beer, or how cool the new Patagonia vest is and how legit you're going to look like when you walk into an investor's office. They don't do that. they put out films that show how amazing the lifestyle is of the people that use their product. And I love that approach. Skate videos and snowboard videos and surf videos, they always did the same thing. So I would lose myself for hours and hours around watching a video of like a fisherman who just has a little Yeti cooler on his boat next to him, or a surfer who's paddling out with like a Yeti cooler hat on. They're not talking about the product, they're talking about the lifestyle. Yes. And so I thought, what if I could do the same thing for tech? Like if someone falls in love with a B2B SaaS company to the same extent that I fell in love with Yeti coolers in Patagonia, like I'm going to win, bottom line. So I started doing that at day one and telling some more other companies about it that I was advising. And the whole approach was, let's take an Emmy award-winning film crew, basically, and produce a docuseries about the lifestyle of our customers. And then let's take that long-form episode and chop it up into short-form clips and put it all over TikTok, put it all over Instagram. And we're not pushing our product or our value prop. We're pushing, again, the lifestyle that our product enables or our experience enables. And people were loving this on TikTok and loving it on Instagram and loving it on LinkedIn. So we thought, well, let's do a blog too. We could turn our long form episodes into a blog, and we could do a weekly newsletter, talk about all the different lifestyles that are being enabled through it. We grew 300% in 6 months without spending a dime on ads. And it was solely through this organic storytelling, like beautiful approach. And so January of 2023 rolled around. The market was real bad. Our burn rate was still too high at day one, and we couldn't secure the next round. So the whole team basically called it a day. And I didn't even skip a beat. I just knew, to answer your question from 10 minutes ago, sorry I went on this long tirade about it. Yeah. I just had a knew in my heart and soul, like, this is what I need to go do with lots of brands. I'll just go all in on the agency again, gave it a new name, rebranded it, very focused value prop and story here. So I come into startups that are a little bit too early to hire that full marketing department and sales department in-house, but they are far enough along where they have some money to like spend 20, 30K a month or somewhere in that range, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. I joined them for 6, maybe 9, maybe 12 months, maybe a couple years, depending on the engagement, and build the whole ecosystem and playbook of content for them using this strategy.
Right. So, yeah, so in other words, you're actually, and Gary Vaynerchuk's very strong on it too, it's repurposing content and turning it into multiple content. So let's talk a little bit more about, so Thursday Labs obviously came out of the inspiration of how can you do more with less instead of just throwing money at the wall.
Yep. So
talk to me more about what's this type of, because people buy a product not because they will actually affirm it or convince themselves with their mind and logic why they bought a new car, but actually they bought the new car because of how it makes them feel.
Right.
So obviously you're trying to create content in terms of trying to create feelings and inspire people rather than the head. You're trying to touch the heart.
That's right.
Okay. So talk to me more about what are some of the types of short, when you carve something up in a short form video, because you've got a creative side to you very much, obviously. So what's the sort of things you're trying to turn into, like 30-second, 1 minute, whatever video? Yeah. Take us through that process and what's the idea behind it?
Yeah, it's a very scientific process, essentially, and it's super simple. And I hope every listener does the same or gives me a call and we can do it together. Step one is I ask the client or the company in discovery phase, who's our audience? Who are we trying to reach? Who's our consumer? We need to know this person better than they know themselves. Here's an example of the level of depth that I like to go to. Yeah, we go after divorced men between the ages of 40 and 42 who like to wear Adidas sneakers. They are allergic to dairy. They listen to Bruce Springsteen, and they have the following 4 fears that keep them up at night. Like, right. I need to know that stuff.
Yep.
Oftentimes the founders were that person, which is why they started the company in the first place. But not always. It's helpful when they were. So anyway, we start there. Like, who is the audience? Okay. Next step is part A and part B. Step 2, part A is we have lots of conversations with those customers typically the founder has already done this or their sales team has already done this. And the question that we're trying to answer is like, what keeps them up at night? What questions do they have about this space that we're in that are not being answered? And oftentimes the salespeople can just say, oh yeah, well, these are the 5 things that our customers and our prospects keep asking me. For example, if we're selling for a company that sells protein supplements, and I use this example a lot, the people that we're selling to don't only care about protein supplements. They care about a lot of things that protein supplements are sort of related to. They probably have questions about their diet, their skincare routine, and their hair care routine, and their sleep performance, and all these things related to health and wellness. But because they enjoy protein supplements, like they have lots of questions about the life of being a healthy person. So part A is you ask it through more qualitative conversations. Part B, though, is we also do SEO research. So there's a bunch of tools out there that you can do to see what are these people searching for on Google. How highly ranked are they? That's just basic SEO research. So we can target and reverse engineer, like, all right, for 42-year-old divorced men who are interested in protein supplements, what are they searching for on Google? Like, what questions are they asking about health and wellness or whatever? It might be how to lose 10 pounds without eating dairy. Great. How do I find other fit people to date? Because now I'm single and divorced and sad and I want to go start dating. Like, right? They care about a lot of things related to health and wellness. So the bottom line with step 2 is ask ourselves, what are the questions and challenges that our customers have that are sort of adjacent to our space that are not being answered? And then step 3 is we go produce an episode, an interview series where we ask influencers and celebrities and the thought leaders within that industry to answer those questions. And so if we do a 45-minute episode and we ask them the 12 questions that are the top 12 questions that our audience is asking on Google, and then they answer it, well, now I've got a 30-second clip of a famous person or the most trusted voice in that space answering that question. And I'll put that on TikTok. TikTok is a great place for this because their algorithm is the opposite of everyone else's, where if I put up a piece of content, they will go find the audience that's the best fit for that content for me. Yeah. I love TikTok for that. And that's why I put every single brand on TikTok, especially the B2B ones who are all thinking, well, we're B2B, like we don't need to be on TikTok. Yeah, you do, for this reason.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what's really interesting about essentially in the early days of Twitter, it was like TikTok. The tribe, the content you created, the tribe found you. And whereas now it's based around followers and basically maximizing revenue. In other words, it's pay to play. Whereas TikTok has it's much more organic, isn't it? It's
becoming slightly less as it's just getting bigger and obviously, right? But yes, I love that it's that way, and I hope it remains that way. And even the threat of TikTok being banned in the US and already was in one state is scary for this. But we're too far in. Someone will pop up and, this is here to stay. This concept of like, I can just yell into the void and then you'll bring me 300,000 people that need to hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
In other words, yes, because in other words, Twitter and all the others are saying, well, we're only going to deliver it to the network, to your network or to your followers. And the only ones that we choose to let you actually, the algorithm that we're going to allow to happen, because we want to maximize revenue. So tell us a little bit about, so what's some of your best or some success stories that you can maybe share that you got the most views? I'd like you to maybe, if you could give us a couple examples of that and why you got all the traffic and attention.
Sure. Up front, I don't care so much about like a ton of traffic and attention, especially on the organic stuff. What I care about is the click-through rate, the engagement rate. Yep. If we get 1 million eyeballs and only 100 people clicked through and like became a customer or even a lead, well, that's a pretty small engagement rate. And it's much harder to get 1 million eyeballs now. It's like it almost just requires luck when you're early on for a newer brand. But if we got 100 eyeballs and 100 people clicked through and became a lead, it's 100% click-through rate. That's like unheard of. But at the end of the day, you still ended up with 100 leads.
Yep.
So I look for niche, high quality potential leads. So I mean, at this point, I'd say the most my clients' videos have popped off is in the range of, 30 to 100,000 views. Nothing outrageous. A typical one will land somewhere between like 5 and 10,000 views on a TikTok or Instagram. TikTok's very unpredictable. I mean, we had one the other day that hit 13,000 views and we only had 100 followers on the account, and it brought us another like couple hundred followers in like an hour. So go with that one. But to give some context, it's funny because when I set out to do this, I was under the impression of we want to use content to maximize leads and all that. How are we going to track the ROI on this? It's really hard, and I wasn't really sure, and I was quite frankly kind of scared, and still am always scared about, like, are we really going to be able to track how, a TikTok video turns into booked revenue down the line? Here's what's really interesting, though, that we started to find with a couple of clients, about 3 of them. The highly sought after guest that we got on the podcast, who we were kind of using as our almost like spokesperson influencer to help us reach other people. Well, that guest became a client or became a customer because they loved what we were doing. They loved, for the first time in forever, like, a startup is investing in Emmy award-winning level content production versus just another Zoom recording. And when they become a client or a customer, the ROI skyrockets. So far, every company I've worked with has already seen. I mean, I started this in really February. So we're what? March, April, May, June, July. 5 months in. I'm really bad at simple math, so I had to count that on my hand. We're 5 months in, and the clients that are seeing great success after about 3 months are already seeing an ROI of about 5 to 10x on what they're spending with me and my team, based off of that, which is like the guests on the podcast are becoming customers. And then, of course, viewership is great as well. One number I could throw off the top of my head that I saw this morning as we were putting together a board deck for one of my clients, our content amassed 2.5 million views. I'm sorry, 2.5 million people, new people in the last 90 days.
Wow.
So it goes somewhere.
Yep. So you're trying to create emotive short-term form videos that actually hit that really tight niche, the customer that you have defined.
Yeah. Here's actually a fun story. You'll like this one. And I'm trying to figure out how to put this into the case study for this one client. It was the 4th week of me working with them. We put out episode 1. It takes about a month to produce the content and actually create the ecosystem of what we're going to produce. So week 4 of me working with them, still kind of feeling it out with these guys. Both, they're feeling it out with me. And we put out the first episode of a 12-episode series. And within 30 minutes of publishing that episode, the CEO received 2 texts. One text was from an investor that they really wanted to land about a year prior, who ghosted them, just fell silent on them and said, "Hey, I just saw that video you guys posted. You're still raising that round?" He asked to get in a round that was already closed. And another text that he received was from a customer who was pretty far in the funnel, but didn't close. And then texted him and said, "Hey, I think I'm ready to pick up the conversation. Saw that video you guys did. Would love to," and he became a customer. Right. So at the end of the day, at the very least, it really excites me that because the quality of the content is so high, it's almost like baffling to people that they see this new scrappy startup putting out content that's such high quality that the trust and the just general, I guess, endearance, is that the right word? Level of endearment that they have for these startups just goes through the roof. So at the very least, I like to tell my clients, like, yeah, if we work together, we create content, people are just going to really respect you a lot more and do whatever with that, whatever you want.
Cool. So what you're trying to do is create the highest quality content you can with the best guests that you can get on a podcast, for example. Is that correct?
That's right. And the cost to do that has never been cheaper. Couldn't have even done this a year ago.
And that's based upon what? Getting access?
New AI tools. It used to be a full-time job for me. Literally, I was a full-time CMO at day one doing this for one brand.
Right.
And now I can do it with 4, 6 at the same time because the amount of content we can churn out is just getting so much, there's so much more, so much faster.
So so let's flip to discussion around about AI then and the tools you use. Okay, so AI has changed the game. Everyone can create a lot of content. There's going to be a lot of great content. There's going to be a lot of crap content. So What are the AI tools you're using to create the content that you're doing today? Talk us through that process and the tools you're using. I'd be intrigued by that.
The only tool I'm using is ChatGPT 4. I have tried a lot of other tools though, and I continue to try new tools pretty much every day.
Yep.
I'm extremely pleased with GPT-4 for 3 or 4 parts of my workflow. I have been very displeased with almost every other tool out there right now that are kind of like built on top of ChatGPT.
Yep.
For my workflow so far. But I do have faith that in the next month or even 6 months, we're going to see enormous more lift here. What I'm really looking for right now is so you know how Photoshop just launched about a month ago? I think it's called Firefly. I played around with it a bit. Photoshop's AI tool to make photos like look amazing. I'm looking for the equivalent for video editing. That's what I really want. I want to take a clip from a podcast and like tell it what to do, and it edit out the dead moments and size it properly and color it properly and add subtitles that are perfect and blur out or beep out swear words. And I want it to add the right transitions and like animations and B-roll when needed. There's one tool that I'm actually doing a demo on, I think on Monday, called Capsule, that a few friends of mine funded. Haven't met the founder yet, aside from a quick email chain. When this episode is launched, I'm sure I'll have already done that demo. But yeah, check out Capsule. Like, this is the type of stuff I want to really dig into. But so far, ChatGPT 4 is the only one that's part of my daily workflow.
It's very interesting. So, yeah, so basically, I think what's going to happen with business is that the advent of AI and the ability to scale our humanity and creativity is that we're maybe going to see billion-dollar businesses run by 3 or 4 people.
One person, or maybe 0 people. I think that's very near future. Yep. I would say one thing, though, is we actually did an episode for one of my clients that was released this morning with a brilliant guy who is the go-to gentleman for creating experiential and immersive experiences at the world's biggest music festivals and brands. So when a brand is like, we want to do a big activation or we have a big festival coming up, this is the guy we call. Actually, I'll give him a shout out. His name is Justin JB Bolognino. His company is called 𝓦𝓱𝓫, and he's the man. Love this guy. And his argument was AI is not creative. AI is just like better predictability tools. It's not original. It's not creative. It can barely create a list. And that's just where we're at now. So this term AI, and it's not new. It's been around for a long time. And the way he described that on this podcast episode was the most succinct and concise way I had heard it so far. And I agree with him.
Yeah.
I don't think AI is creative. I haven't seen it do anything creative yet. I have seen it, though, help me be more creative, which is great. I use it every day for that.
Yeah. So, but doesn't AI help with actually putting things in different formats that you maybe hadn't thought of? In other words, it enhances your creativity?
That's how I do it. Yeah. So if I have, like, let's say one idea for a blog post, or I have a title for a video, YouTube video, I'll use GPT, and I've got my series of prompts that I like to lean on. And I'll be like, here's one idea. And then I'll go out and find other maybe competing or inspirational pieces of content that I want to mimic or use as like, I like their style, I like their tone, whatever.
Yep.
I'll say, here's one idea. Here's the format I want you to copy or follow. Now generate 12 more ideas for me or 100 more ideas for me. Yep. And it does. And I'll go through, I'll be like, wow, I really like those 9. And those 9 will serve as the framework for, or maybe our content calendar for the next month. Like, otherwise it would have taken me and a team an hour to sit down in a room and brainstorm all these ideas and do all this SEO research. Now I did it in 0.5 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically it's not scraping the web, but scraping data, which helps you. It does the heavy lifting for information.
Yeah. And it's great.
Yeah. But it's missing the inspiration, which is what you're doing by using the right prompts to actually get to where you want to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I think one of the most highly sought after roles right now is a is a prompt engineer, like
Yeah.
someone who gets hired by a company to just come up with great GPT prompts to help the rest of the company. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I came across an example a little while back of ChatGPT being used by a designer, and there was like the chief designer, then there was the junior designers, and they were actually like a mini competition so you could come up with the best product design, I think it was. And despite ChatGPT being able to be used by everyone, the best result by far apparently was the chief designer was the one that produced the best result, because that designer, she was asking better questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we can get kind of existential here and be like, life's not about a better answer. It's always about asking a better question. I like that quote. I've heard that quote years ago. It's always about asking better questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. It's fascinated me. And so I go, okay, so because an expert has had much more experience, so they know how to ask better questions to get a better result.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, so we've talked a little bit about AI. So we have an emerging platform, which is basically a copy of Twitter Threads. Okay. So you got any thoughts on what Threads is going to do to Twitter? Is Threads going to be useful, or is it just, is Zuckerberg just decided that he saw an opportunity with Musk stuffing up Twitter? Okay. What's your thoughts about Threads?
Yeah, candidly, I don't think I have an exciting opinion on it. In short, yeah, I think it was Zuckerberg seeing potentially just some vulnerabilities and weaknesses in the future of Twitter and wanting to have a platform that could capitalize on that. I'm obviously very impressed with the scale of number of users they got in their first day. It was like 100 million in like 72 hours or something like that. That's the biggest ever. It's great. I was on Threads. I remember I saw it in my Uber ride home from a dinner meeting last week. It's like midnight or something. And I was in Uber ride home and I saw I was catching up on Twitter and I saw that Threads launched. So I joined it and I was on it for 4 hours. Like I was up all night on Threads, put all of my clients' accounts on Threads immediately, thinking like, we got to be on top of this. We got to be early. And then I was on it for a few hours the next day. And I checked it here and there. The few days after that, I haven't been on it now in like 3 days. Right. So it's not sticky. Something hasn't kept me there. That's okay. Yeah. It was kind of V1. I'd be curious how many of those 100 million people have been on Threads every day since they joined, including today. I think it's just another one. Yeah. Nothing special. Nothing about it, in my opinion, is substantial innovation. It's incremental.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Someone made a comparison to Google Plus, and Google, because of its own audience, was able to grow Google Plus quite quickly. But at the end of the day, it turned into a ghost town because no one went back and it just wasn't sticky.
Yep. Well, here's one for you. So I actually made a thread. I threaded this the other day. The line was, I think I had a couple glasses of wine and I was getting all in my head. And I wrote, ChatGPT, Vision Pro, Threads, 200,000 people laid off this year. What is going on? Right. That was the thread. So there's a lot to discuss on that front. Like, look at all this incredible innovation, theoretically, that had come out in the last, 6 months from the 3 biggest companies in the world, all in tech. Yet 200,000 people have been laid off recently and can't get another job. Like, what is happening right now? I've just been blown away by that. But first question I kind of have for you actually is like, how do you feel about Apple Vision Pro? What's up with that one?
I think it's going to be a disaster.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Well, because who wants to walk around with something on their head?
Sure.
I really think that AI, or not AI, but virtual reality, augmented reality, I think that it's been struggling to get traction for a long time. Facebook spent 10 billion, 20 billion a year. It's stock market dropped. That actually sale of their headsets has actually dropped in the last 12 months. I just think it's too hard. I really, it's not. It doesn't integrate into us being human. And I think that's my take on it. I still think that, and at $3,500 US, it's a big ask. I think if anyone's going to crack that, that nut of augmented reality, virtual reality, Apple will be the one to do it. Yeah. So let's see. But I'm quietly pessimistic on that particular aspect of tech. I think something that sits easily like your earpods, great. Okay, something that's on your your watch on your wrist, great. Headset,
not so much.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my take.
Yep. Cool.
So let me ask you a question. So we talked about the changing landscape too for venture capital, well, startups. We've had 5-6 years of easy money.
Yeah, less. I mean, it was, well, okay, sure. Yeah, 5-6 years.
Yeah. Anyway, who's counting?
Yeah.
So the landscape's changed, and what you talked about too, about you had to do more with less, with short-term video, emotional video. What you described to me when you talked about that was was a term which is really popular 7 or 8 years ago called growth hacking. Essentially, what you're talking about is growth hacking using short-form videos. In other words, you are trying to actually, because growth hacking is not about spending more money on advertising. It's about growth hacking organic marketing, which is what you've just talked about.
Totally. It's so funny. I haven't heard that term in a while, and I'm like getting a little blast from the past here that you brought it up. That was a great phrase for a little while. It still is. Yeah.
But you're doing growth hacking.
Yeah, I guess so. I am doing growth hacking.
Let's call it growth video hacking. Let's put another word in it.
Yeah. It's funny, when I think of growth hacking, I was part of this community called BAMF, Badass Marketers and Founders.
Okay.
Run by this guy, Josh Fechter, brilliant growth. He was like the growth hacker. I mean, he's the grandfather of growth hacking, 2017, 2018, around that era. And the growth hacks would be cool things like export your LinkedIn list, and then you're going to, distribute an email through this platform that reduces the bounce rate. And it was just like literally like hacking all these tools that were out there to maximize reach and all that stuff. And that's what I think about when I hear growth hacking. I feel like now I don't even do that phrase justice, because I'm just kind of like taking video and putting it on social, but making video that people actually connect with more. But yeah, I mean, the organic side of it, though, if that's how we want to classify it, the organic side is, I freaking love that word, organic, right? Yeah. In so many ways. And that's really what this is, what it's more about versus the hack side of it.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that people forget, because we're impatient little human beings, is that we want instant quick fixes. We're not willing to play the long game. Yeah.
Oh, man. I struggle with that running my agency every day. And this is exactly how it comes out. I think anybody who runs an agency who's listening will probably smile when I say this. It's the potential clients who are like, help us go viral. Can you make us go viral? And I get that a lot. And I think it's a valid question. I know marketers all laugh at it because it just doesn't make any sense. And that's the quick fix. We want to go viral. We want to make one video that just was like the best video anyone's ever seen, and we go from 0 to 1 million followers overnight. We're also a species that is currently just chasing, doing anything we can do to get quick bursts of serotonin. That's what our whole world is built on now, is these quick bursts of serotonin. I would freaking love to wake up one morning and see that I had 100 followers yesterday and now I've got 1 million. Like, that would put a lot of serotonin through my brain.
Yeah.
The problem, though, is not a good strategy.
No, it's not. And
it's luck. And the strategy is consistency and quality. And we're psyched if something goes viral, but it's not replicable. It's not reliable. I can't put in an investor deck in slide 11 where we say our growth strategy that we're going to make viral videos. get laughed out of the room for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've just recently read a book which was the history of BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, Gawker. It was content chasing clicks.
Yeah.
It's about they were hooked on the drug of viral.
Yeah.
Now, that worked well until Facebook started changing the algorithms. The first hit to that algorithm chase was in 2014, 13, 14, when Facebook basically changed much more to pay to play. Viral was not then. 2017, it changed again. And just interesting to read the history of companies that have crashed and burned or soared to the heavens, and like Icarus have had their wings burnt by the sun, flying too close to the sun. So BuzzFeed is an example of that, right? It was worth a lot of money, grew amazingly quickly, but they were chasing viral.
Right.
And I think there's nothing wrong with viral. I like the hit of viral. I've had viral traffic to my blog and so on. So the interesting thing is I think you've got to do both. You've got to basically be able to write such a great headline that people click on it without it being clickbait. You've got to create a great video that actually gets people to click through to a landing page.
Yep.
So, because you're still going to play a long game.
Totally. I mean, I have a thesis and a philosophy on all this, and it's just so freaking simple. It's just like, be helpful. Like,
yep.
If you're actually providing really helpful, valuable shit to a niche specific group that you really actually care about,
yep,
you're going to do great. You're going to do fine.
Yep.
And if it's not taking off within that group, then it's not helpful enough. Be more helpful.
Yep.
Get to know them better.
Yep.
Figure out what's actually keeping them up at night.
Yep.
And just provide value. And I actually should have mentioned this before, but there's a couple ways to do that. Entertainment, like just make someone smile, be entertained.
Yep.
Age old. Education, teach them something. Now they'll feel smarter because of you. And inspiration, inspire them. Give them like a boost that keeps them going. That's kind of on the side of empowerment.
Yep.
You do one of those three things or two or all three of those, you're going to do great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's when you sit down and you create content. You're going, am I informing? Am I inspiring? Am I educating? They're the things you need to be asking when you're writing. In other words, you're putting yourself in the shoes of the people that need it to help them be inspired to start something or grow something. I remember writing one morning, because I used to write very early in the morning for about 4 years. Got up at 4:30 a.m. and wrote.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. And I remember looking out at the windows, dark windows, saying, I'm writing for people behind all these windows. Everyone feels pain, everyone feels joy. How can I actually touch their hearts and minds? And it sounds like with your videos, you're trying to do that. You're trying to touch their hearts, especially.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got my little bookmark folder of the videos that have done it for me. I hope that there are people with my videos bookmarked in theirs for them. And quite frankly, like, no joke, I was so damn inspired by that content growing up that I moved across the country to actually live the lifestyle that content was selling me on. And it was amazing.
Yep.
It was better than I expected.
Yep.
And I attribute it to that content. So why do I do what I do? Like, that's why. I mean, man, I want more people to have their life genuinely impacted by content. I mean, by stories.
Yeah.
The word content dumbs it down, right? It's content. By stories.
Yeah. Yeah, and that raises an interesting area that I've been doubling down into recently, which is, if you heard of Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey?
Yeah.
Okay. What I love about Joseph Campbell is that it's all about stories that touch people's hearts, and it's the power of myth.
Yeah.
And I think one of the key films he's looking after is one of the key things he talks about is myths to live by.
Mm.
And I think storytelling's about getting to the heart of everyone's myth. And one of the things he used, which I thought was great, he said, basically, myths are public dreams, and what does it say? And for individual dreams are private myths.
Interesting.
I'm
not sure I fully follow that. Yeah, can you break that down for me?
Well, a little bit. So what we dream about at night, our dreams, become our private myths.
Got
in other
it.
words, what's touching you? In other words, and it gets down to very, Jungian and philosophy. But I maybe haven't said
my anxieties.
Yeah.
My anxieties, my fears, my exes, all that stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, it's I think I think 8 out of the top 10 movies of all time are based upon Joseph Campbell's story arc, The Hero's Journey.
Yeah.
Which starts
a story I love. Sorry, go on.
No, go. Sorry.
One of my favorite, probably actually my favorite startup story is Brian Chesky, Airbnb, and his team when they were early on. They hired a Hollywood writer to write out using the hero's journey framework. I'm sorry, this is a Pixar writer, like Pixar.
Yep.
And they had that writer create a whole storyboard, pretty much up until the point of like creating the film, of what the most amazing Hollywood level, blockbuster level Airbnb story would be, of somebody who goes on a vacation and stays at an Airbnb.
Yep.
And the storyboard that came out of that was the source of their entire UX, basically.
Wow. Yep. And I get that, because it's getting to the core of being human.
Yeah.
And because the whole thing about what Joseph Campbell did was he went to many of the cultures of the world, many of the religions of the world, and he discovered that these aren't multiple myths. There is one myth that connects. We have a global world human myth, because there's common themes in every culture and in every religion.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is that religion, well, don't normally touch on religion, but religion concretizes myth, makes it history rather than a story.
Yep.
And that way it loses its power.
Yep.
The challenge is we have to work out what myths we're going to live by in a modern age, because the cosmology that drove myths years ago about the universe, science has actually disproved that. So this is a really interesting time in terms of what are the myths we're going to live by today in 2023.
Sure.
So, but yeah, it's fascinating storytelling. And you obviously enjoy storytelling, and video is your favorite format. Is that one of the reasons why you're moving to California, is to get closer to Hollywood?
I'm moving because I want to live on the beach, and I have a slightly large dog, and I love to surf. I've lived deep in the mountains of Colorado for 7 years. I've lived in New York. I grew up in New York, and I've lived in New York City now for 4 years. I haven't done the beach thing yet. And my company, I believe, will continue to thrive in Southern California. So we'll see. That's why I'm moving.
Okay, I totally get that, because I need to live near the sea. And we have some of the best beaches in the world in Sydney. And
you do. And I'm sure I'll be out there at some point to surf. And when I do, I'm going to give you a call. Love for you to show me around.
I live near one of the best surf beaches in Sydney called Bronte.
Nice. Do you get out much to surf?
Which is near Bondi. So I'm not a surfer. I grew up water skiing. So because I grew up in a Gulf where there wasn't much surf, so I ended up using smooth water rather than rough water.
Nice.
But yeah, I love being near the ocean. It feeds my soul, that's for sure. And so I love the fact that you're trying to create stories that touch people's hearts and make a difference. I think what you're doing is awesome, Jake, and look forward to hearing more about storytelling you're evolving, because it's a really fascinating time. We've got AI helping us as humans, but we need to use it as a tool and not as a crutch. And that's a really interesting. I'm struggling with it's so easy to write content that is information with ChatGPT. But it's
Sure.
still got to be human, and it's still got to touch hearts, and we need to tell stories better. And that's
Totally.
what you're doing. And that's what you're doing, which is awesome. So thank you very much for sharing your stories. Is there any tips to entrepreneurs, wannabe entrepreneurs, that you've learned along the way? Like just a couple of tips.
Oh
just,
God.
just
We
one or
could,
two if you got time.
yeah, we could stay a whole nother hour to talk about that. Yeah, I mean, a couple that really always come to mind. This game takes a very long time. This game is extremely hard. Everyone says it's hard, but like the words couldn't possibly come close. I was always told time and time again by many mentors, many friends, many bosses even, and investors even in me, who are like, dude, if there's even an ounce that is able to not be an entrepreneur within you, follow that. Like, don't do this. But if you are 1,000% unable to do anything else, then okay, be an entrepreneur. And I do agree with that. Don't chase the quick wins. Every time you do, it will fail and flop for many reasons. I can absolutely speak from personal experience there. Quick wins can mean I need to make $100,000 in 3 months, or we need to like sell this company by next year. Anything you think is 3 to 5 years, it's 7 to 10 years. Anything that you think is 90 days, it's a year. Like everything just takes longer. So my advice is be patient and figure out whatever way you need to do to really genuinely enjoy the entire process of it. I mean, those lows are so low. The highs are quite high. There are very few highs compared to the number of lows that there are. The highs just outweigh how low those lows are by the tiniest bit, if at all, the tiniest bit. And that's the reason I'm moving to California, because I mean, like outside of my just daily work life in New York, I'm not getting the fulfillment I used to. I just kind of grew out of it. And I like to be in nature more. And so like, you got to do what you got to do for yourself so that you can enjoy this little life you've got here, the time you've got here as an entrepreneur. It's an entire lifestyle play. It's not like your job. So that's my advice. And I can get into the little nitty gritty on like how to get an investor and how to raise money or how to make a sale, all that stuff. None of that matters unless the one I just mentioned is it's foundational, unless that one's checked off. That's my advice.
So what you're saying is follow your bliss.
That's one way to put it. Totally.
In other words, what brings you joy, and that includes what the environment you surround yourself, such as nature, and also what you do each day. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to handle. You're not going to be able to endure the long journey you're about or have started on.
Totally. I mean, and I think there's a good lesson in how do you define joy, right? I don't believe in happiness. I think that's fake. I think it's just marketing. It has been since the 70s.
Yep.
Happiness isn't real. Sorry, anyone who's listening who doesn't like that and wants to send me a death threat. It's not real. Our brains aren't wired for it. Joy is real. Euphoria is real. So my whole thing is maximize the amount of things and feelings. Well, I'll rephrase. Man, that could have been so impactful if I got that right. I'll try again. Maximize the amount of moments in your life that bring you a feeling of joy, both in how long you're feeling that joy and how often you feel it. And it could be as small as like just sitting on your porch listening to the birds chirp, or catching a wave for like 3 seconds, or sitting on a chairlift and the snow is coming down, or like walking through a crowded part of New York City and enjoying the sun shining through the buildings on a Friday afternoon, and you're like on your way to a dinner, whatever. Maximize how much you can feel the joy. And more importantly, though, within joy, you can feel pride. Do you feel integrity? Do you feel growth? Because I'm not joyful unless I'm like proud of the work that I'm doing. I'm not joyful unless I'm feeling like I'm working in integrity. And so if those boxes are checked, like you're proud of the work you do, you're being the person every day that you really want to be, then you're also feeling joy on top of it, then you're good. That's my formula. I don't know if that works for everybody, but happy to offer it up if it could be helpful for anyone else.
So let's, I was going to ask you what brings you joy, and so I'm going to ask you, so just sum it up. And because we actually ended up talking about what brings you joy. So just sum it up for me. What brings you joy? Maybe it's a package, but what brings Jake joy? Sorry, what brings Jake joy?
Yeah, it's a laundry list of things. A good view.
Yep.
Freaking love a good view of the mountains, of a beach, a city skyline.
Yep.
I have to live in a place with a good view. Otherwise, I work from home. I can't even like think or be the best I can. I love a good view. A lot of music brings me joy. A really great dinner party over some fantastic wine or mezcal. Just that, like the flow state of being in conversation and community with people that you, whether they're brand new folks that you just met or family and friends, like people that you just can feel joy with, right? That brings me a lot of joy. And then a great country, mountain, or beachside drive. I love my truck. I love cars. I love just a good drive with my dog next to me. And I love quite a few sports. I always say, like, the day I can't really do my sports anymore, my action sports, just like kill me, honestly. I love to snowboard. I love to surf. I love to bike. I love jujitsu. Those are my main four things. And two of which get me in my head, two of which get me completely out of my head.
Right.
But both are a different type of flow state for me. And the joy, the endorphins literally, but also the joy of those, put it in nature in a beautiful spot as well with a nice view. And good music playing, like that's like that. I'm off the rails happy.
So does joy also sit within your creative process in terms
totally.
of, so in other words, you go, at the end of the day, I said I created this video that I got from different source inspiration. I've edited it and I've published it and I've shared it. Does that give you joy?
Yeah, it's a different type of joy. I can sum it up with this feeling, and I get this. This is why I love what I do so much, because this happens like 3 nights a week, where, I mean, I'll work till midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. I'll completely lose track of time building a thing, whether it's like building a website or creating a campaign or just crafting something. It's my craft. I grew up painting. Like, I used to be an artist, and now this is my art in many ways. And then I go to bed, and then I wake up at the crack of dawn and can't wait to get back to my computer to continue it. Like, I only slept a few hours. I'm up before my dog sometimes. And that is when, that's kind of my litmus test of like, even if I'm not making much money at the time, and like money comes and goes, if I've got that in my weekly regiment where I'm losing track of time late into the night and can't wait to jump out of bed in the morning to do it, and like it happens every week, sometimes a few nights a week. If I've got that going on, I'm doing the right thing. And I've had quite a few companies I've worked for or built that was not happening. And when I kind of pick now, as I'm older, I can look back and be like, as soon as I realize it's not happening and hasn't happened in like a couple months, move on to it, get out of there, find the next thing that does. And that's one of my wishes for a lot of people, for everyone, is like, find the thing. I feel like 99% of people don't have that. That kind of bums me out. And I would absolutely love it if everybody could find the thing that they lose track of time with and jump out of bed for in the morning to go do.
Yep.
Imagine the world we live in if everyone had that as a career.
Yeah. And I think you've just described a state of flow.
Yeah.
And that's not what we call, I suppose, because joy is a word that's tossed around loosely.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's deep satisfaction, which could be described as bliss as well.
Yeah.
So words are very interesting. And what you talked to me about in terms of one of the things that brings you joy as a dinner party, was sit down and you talk shit, you have fun, you have conversations, you play with words, that brings me joy as well. And I've traveled a lot, and I've gone to countries where English is a second language, and I've missed the conversations that you have happen around a dinner table or a restaurant, in a restaurant. And I totally get that. It's about being human and sharing stories.
Totally.
And
if
also,
there's a campfire there too, it's so human. It's as human as it gets.
Yeah. And it's really fun. Like sometimes we exaggerate things and we tell stories. Don't let truth get in the way of a good story is a line I love. And I've had partners say to me, that didn't exactly happen like that. And going,
doesn't matter. doesn't matter. There's no truth anymore. Right? It's just everyone's interpretation of it. I like that line. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. And you're right. That's where myth becomes powerful. It's not truth. It's not history, but it tells a story.
Yeah. Totally.
Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I really enjoyed. I think we got to some really good stuff at the end.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me. And you're great. You ask great questions.
So thank you. And how did people find you, Jake?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on a couple of platforms. LinkedIn is my main spot. Sometimes I've had multiple people tell me, like, dude, post a little less on LinkedIn. It's too much. I post a lot there. I share a lot of content, and I experiment with a lot of different ways of storytelling. I kind of use myself as a guinea pig for then my clients, so anyway, it's Jake Hurwitz on LinkedIn. My company is called Thursday Labs. Our website, exactly how it sounds, is how it's spelled, thursdaylabs.co. So you can find us there. And then Instagram, that's kind of the more personal side. I decided to make my account more public recently, and it's sort of the overlap of life and business and travel. I had this phrase for a while it's no longer in my bio, but it was for a bit, which was build things, make music, and travel well. And so my Instagram is largely about building things, making music, and traveling well. And my Instagram is hey_I'm_Jake Hurwitz. And I don't know, people can find me. I share the name as a pretty famous comedian. So if you search Jake Hurwitz on Google and you see like this comedian with good-looking guy with glasses and works at College Humor, that is not me. Although sometimes I hope to be even an ounce as funny as he is. But people can find me.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing your stories. I look forward to hearing more from you, and enjoy your adventure to California.
Thank you. I appreciate that. To
add to the joy equation with a beach, a surf, and a dog, and an adventure, and a truck.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
That's what it is. Driving across the country with my dog and my surfboards. It's going to be nice. It'll be a nice view when we're about 50-80% of the way there. That's when the view will kick in. So.
Right. And I love a good view. I couldn't live in a valley and do my heart in, actually. So I need a view as well. And when I travel, I'm looking for a terrace every time.
There you go. Love it, man.
Thanks, Jake. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.